The Track Stitch podcast coming up, late season meeting review as we take a look at the Athlos meet from New York City yesterday. Grand Slam track is finally paying athletes. Is it back? What does this mean for next year? And we've got a new game for you, as always, innovating on the People's Podcast. All that and more coming up on The Stitch. But first, as always, Track Stitch Band.
Champion! Riders bearing down on top of Ngugi. Ngugi digs deep and he's got no more. And Andrew Lloyd wins the second. Récupéré ensuite chez lui au Maroc à Ifrane.
La Web, il est parti à la Web, il a tenté le coup du siècle là. Oui, surprendre tout le monde. Au
final of the men's 10,000 meters in 19.
Stop the ball out. Oh, it looks to be. Who else is in the race? The wave is there. The confidence is there.
Hey, recording this Saturday, October the 11th, the morning here in the Pacific Northwest. Sunday, October the 12th for Shane Rohde, sitting in beautiful Auckland, New Zealand. Deo, how you doing?
Yeah, fresh off the links and some bombs yesterday. Yeah, a few lipped out parts. I'm in good. I'm in good fettle.
Hey, what else is going on in your life? You had a building change for Lateral Lawyers, the business.
We've moved off the the ghetto block of Lower Hobson. It's almost like a different postcode. We're into the more salubrious parts of the city, into 55 Shortland Street. Yes, I'll be peacocking around those parts. It's lovely. Level 15. I'll get the podcast equipment up there in the coming weeks, and we'll do one with a big sprawling view of the old corner office view.
You're not in Guatemala now, Dr. Opata. For all the New Zealand viewers out there, Shortland Street, classic. Oh, good stuff, man. Hey, so things winding down in the world of track and field a little bit as we get to the end of the season, at least for track. We've got the major marathons coming up soon. We already had Berlin. We've got Chicago coming up tomorrow, I believe. But hey, anyway, good chance to take a look at this meet that happened yesterday in New York City, the Athlos meet. Did you catch any of it?
I did, yeah, and it doesn't really, it doesn't do it for me. It doesn't tickle my fancy. Yeah, I think, you and I are purists. Yeah, it's a somewhat interesting point. Well, it's interesting to me, and I think it'll be interesting to you. God knows whether it'll be interesting to the viewership.
Yeah,
all 28 of you.
Yeah.
The way the Yanks are trying to market, there's a running boom at the moment, and the way they're trying to market running, it's very Yank. It's very us first. We think things should be this way. It's very. Rose was watching last night, just in the background. She said very garish. I thought that was a good way to put it. It was very, very New York, that particular meet. Very kind of. It felt like not a lot of substance to it. A lot of bright lights. It's like being in a sort of nightclub.
Yeah.
And track and field's roots are in Europe, and it's conservative. It's quiet, and there's a lot of, I think, class and history to it. I don't know if that. I mean, maybe it takes off in a new way in the US. Who am I or who you or I to say whether that could happen? But it's not hitting the nail on the head for us purists. But maybe we're like in Test cricket. Maybe we are like the Test cricket guys, and we've loved Test cricket, and they bring in what they call pajama cricket. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you to a degree. I mean, you try and stay open with these sorts of things and not be like immediately critical and dismissive. Here's the thing where it's just so difficult for me with the concept is that for me, it's just like a total net zero, right? It's not hurting the sport, but in the same way, I really question if it's benefiting the sport. So I think one of the big differences with this other sort of new innovative upstart track league Grand Slam track we'll talk about in a second, the difference there is that first of all, that was always promoted as something that was going to revolutionize a sport, and it's going to make it so much better, and track sucks, and this is going to save it. Like those were the actual words Michael Johnson. And that's different to what the Athlos meet is. There's no claims there. And of course, the other thing too is that with the amount of funding behind this Athlos meet through Alexis Ohanian and his ventures, etc., we don't have the same situation where it's damaging to the sport like Grand Slam track was, where there was all this promise of funding that never came through, and then the sport ends up looking like this amateur circus that can't pay its athletes. So it's difficult to criticize it, but at the same time, I think one of the whole, the narrative of the meet, or the goal of the meet, is to celebrate female athletes and also to promote, presumably, the sport for younger women out there in particular. I just question if it really does that. And I know we're kind of socially acculturated to not, mention these sorts of things, but I think it has to be said. I went in with an open mind. I watched all the events, but man, I don't want to watch a mile with like 5 women in it.
Yeah,
To be honest, and it was a terrible race.
Yeah.
And
I think the concept is noble, for want of a better word. The guy's got plenty of money, so that's it's going to survive. It is cool that it's bringing eyes to the sport, and woman only's. That's fine. I really don't care. I'm not an axe to grind about that. So that is all cool, and it was well promoted, and they did certain things well, but just taking all of those biases out of it and looking at even if you want to just look at it to promote women's sport, the amount of, and maybe the younger audience and maybe the American audience loves that type of thing, but I felt it had a lot of hullabaloo and a lot of sort of ceremony, and the actual quality of the races was rubbish. It was at a funny time of the year, and it had almost sort of like cycling back in the day, where they had the criteriums after the tour, which were largely ceremonial races for like the tour champion to show off his yellow jersey and to, effectively set up what do they call it? It was basically a ceremony. So they, what I'm trying to say, a procession really. Like they basically let certain people win for all these little deals they have. I'm not saying for a second it was like that, but it did feel a little bit like that, didn't it? It felt a little bit like it was a ceremonial celebration of women in sport. But if I'm a young lady and I'm watching those races compared to, say, the Diamond League, or just even that second tier or the NCAA is probably a better example. I'd way rather watch the NCAA, so that the young ladies and the young men run in the NCAA than I would, or a great cross-country race with 200 people, and they go out and there's packs, and you can watch those on YouTube. I just don't think as a product it's a particularly good one.
Yeah, and I think on that, just to segue on that, I think definitely it's a product that's designed to be much better in person than it is on the television or the broadcast.
Yeah.
The only problem is they're holding it in New York City at a time. I mean, it's just a difficult market. It's at a very odd time of the year. It's a small stadium. They claim to have sold out the stadium. They clearly didn't. And I think it's just, it has to be better, because you've only got 6 events going on throughout the whole program and almost 90 minutes to fill. It's the same issue that Grand Slam track had. It's just a lot of downtime. Now, if you're there in the stadium and there's always some kind of action going on, and you can hang out and feel the energy of the crowd, that's good. But if you're watching it like we were just on the feed, or anywhere else in the world other than New York City, it's just a tough watch. I felt just way too much downtime. It's the same issue that Grand Slam track had, a lot of faffing on. But again, it's hard to criticize something. I just don't think
the approach of both Michael Johnson, or these people, Serena Williams and her husband behind this, I just don't know if the sort of people that are going to be into, say, going out for, there's a running boom, sure, going out running, but then as a spectacle, I think you're only appealing to nerdy people like us who love the sport in a very pure way. There's no sort of bells and whistles or fanfare, and it's just that pure competition, right? Fight or flight. So all of the attempt to bring in all of the sort of hullabaloo and bright lights, I don't know if that is going to attract people, because inherently running is not really that interesting compared to, say, the NBA or NFL or WNBA. It's just not. And they're trying to sort of make something which is average in terms as an entertainment product to bring people in to watch something they probably wouldn't watch anyway. I just don't quite know. I tell you what, though, that the Times Square with Tara Davis Woodall, that was cool. I would, if I were them, I would just do that, or maybe do some sprints down, Times Square or something like that. I think that was a pretty cool thing. But that is just completely in the gimmicky, like unique sort of realm where it's different. And I quite enjoyed watching all that. And Rose enjoyed watching that because it was like unique. Whereas this was sort of a bastardized half track meet, half concert that was neither. It didn't fit for me. I just turned off the TV, and the final nail in the coffin was that mile, and you see they've only got like 5 women there, and and just, I know it's slightly off topic, but we can just segue into it because we're kind of freestyling today anyway. How bloody maniacal is Gurdjieff Sege? Like, and the most frustrating thing is she's so good. Like, if almost any other athlete did a burst like that after 200 and burn the pacemaker off, she'd run 450. So she's really strong. The fact she even managed to stay, but she was grimacing after one lap, like she had like 200 to go. She was. It
was similar. It was similar to the Silesia race. She did the same thing. No, I mean, I said to a couple of guys I was texting while we were watching live, I wonder if that was actually part of her strategy. I'm beginning to truly believe this is part of her strategy going in. So
don't mess with people. Yeah.
Well, also as well as that, maybe like look at it from her point of view. Maybe she's like, I can't beat Kipyegon in any style of race. So what I'm going to do is
just be disruptive.
Yes, just be disruptive and make sure, because what was it? It was like 60 grand for the win and 25 for second and 10 for third. So what she did, like ultimately, she's like, well, if I go and do this, there's no way that Nikki Hiltz is going to come with me and whatever. There's no way anybody else in the field is. I'm guaranteed of 25K. And then maybe you also say, hey, there's a possibility that if Faith Kipyegon comes with me,
she might blow up more than me.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I felt watching the race. Unfortunately, the offshoot of that is that the race was shit. Like, it was terrible. I mean, as a spectacle as well.
Yeah,
5-person race.
I hear all that, but wouldn't you still? And obviously, there's not a lot of logical rationality that comes to Gurdjieff Sege. But wouldn't you wait maybe after a lap and go, or after? Once you've settled, or maybe make a long run from home with 2 laps to go. But she tried, sprinted past like that. I thought she was a long jumper in the infield. It was wild. She got out, and the only reason she didn't go straight to the front is because she couldn't accelerate quick enough. And she was sprinting like full tilt down the back straight.
She ran 28 point for the. I was watching it on the screen. She ran 28 point. I felt so sorry for the pacemaker because it's not an easy job to do that, right? So she goes out there and the meet's like, right, you're going to run 205 and we'd like you to maybe go out in like 63 and then run a 62. And she's like, oh, shit, I'm doing it for Faith Kipyegon, the world record holder. No. And then all of a sudden, Gurdjieff Sege goes run 28 for the first 200. And then through the actual 400 meter point and maybe even under 60, right? It was right on through the 409 and like 62.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. And the pacemaker just had to step off the track because obviously what are you doing out there at that point? But
Gurdjieff Sege, she ran 66 or 67 for the second lap, right?
Yeah.
Completely blew up.
Yeah. Or maybe just like that was clearly she had to slow down because you can't go through in 2 minutes.
No.
In the women's mile and then expect to survive. But I am with you that I thought when Kipyegon went past her, I'm like, oh my gosh, Sege is going to completely blow out here, but it's going to be fine because she's done what she wanted to do, which was secure second place. But again, there was even a point in the final 200. I was like, could she potentially catch Kipyegon here? She looked like she was coming back at her, and you just wonder, like, maybe she's selling herself short with some of the tactics, right?
I think so. I mean, she's a 350 woman, and she's got a sort of looks like quite a sort of irascible person. Mind you, I think she has calmed down a bit after the Olympics with the bumping fiasco, but unusual looking person, and she not looking, but unusual sort of behaving person, but she's bloody good, and she is as hard as nails. We could never deny that. I mean, she gets out there like that, and she is hurting, man, and she is tough. Yeah, she's tough.
Yeah. The mysterious or the curious case of Good FC.
That's quite the curious case of Good FC.
Yeah.
You never know. I tell you what, you never know what's going to happen when she's in a race. It's crazy.
Well, yeah. I mean, we sort of do now, but we know that it's going to be something that completely deviates from the script of what we see in modern professional track and field racing, which is a lot of wave light warrior stuff, even pace, very measured kind of. She's almost like the ultimate throwback to the past, where these guys used to, 1500 go out in 52, or
she's a relic.
48.3 in the 800 or something like that. Yeah, absolutely crazy.
Hey, here's another. I know we're sort of just making it up today. I went and watched last night a bunch of older historical races, like favorite races, and I watched,
as you do on Saturday night.
I watched Snell his 18-15 races in Tokyo. They were pretty cool, just to sort of see how dominant he was. I watched Walker in 76. I watched the 800 final from Gothenburg, Wilson Kipketer.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And I also watched his 99 race. And I tell you what, if you're an aficionado out there, people like old Sammy Maloney, takes a man after our own hearts. I tell you what is an underrated race out of all those is that 99 Seville 800 when Sepeng pushes him all the way to the line. That's a great race. I haven't watched that enough. I've watched it a handful of times, and I've watched those other races, God, more times than I've had hot dinners. But that 99 final, and got McAvaney commentating. It's the first link on YouTube. It's just fantastic when Kipketer has to chase him down, isn't it? That last, and he almost bloody gets there, Sepeng.
Yeah, because the whole thing behind it, or the backstory behind it, of course, is Kipketer's had malaria, which has wrecked his 98 season. So he's come back and he's not quite as strong. And prior to that, the 1995 final, he wins it so easily. It's a great race to watch.
Yeah,
no, but also the 95 one, because it's so slow. Remember, and he runs like a 12 point. He runs like a 12.4 final 100, and it looks like a training exercise for him.
It does.
He's so dominant. And then 97 is probably that's the obviously peak of his powers, Kipketer, where he's just playing with the pace, right? He goes out, he runs like 24 low, then backs off the pace to, it's still 49 something at the bell.
Yeah.
Backs off even further through to 600, and then just drops the hammer and destroy those guys. But yeah, the story is in 99, Sepeng knows that he's not quite at his best, and he makes that hard attack with 250 to go that nobody had ever done to Kipketer before, right? And just put him under so much pressure. And
he looked good in that race, Sepeng. He was strong. Yeah.
Dude, I mean, he ran 143. What was the winning time? 143.
143.32 or 3.1. Yeah.
Exactly. And Sepeng was 143.3 point as well, because he was right with him on the line. So, to run that in a world final for a start is kind of incredible in its own right. And to push Kipketer, it was definitely one of the, in terms of like a pure race, because not a lot of those 800s had been very sort of competitive up until that point because of the dominance of Kipketer sans 96 when he wasn't allowed to run. So it was definitely an awesome race.
Here's another point, just a very sort of freestyling segue. So I went and watched the 1500 in Seville, and it never dawned on me until I watched that race again. But I think perhaps we are going to see a slew of guys running faster, maybe high 23, 26s, mid to low 27s, particularly after Azzedine Habs ran 3:27.4 this year.
Yeah.
Well, and the reason I say that is Algarouge Algarouge won that 99 race going away, and he was really dominant. Nian was really nowhere near him at the end, and it was like a real landmark performance. It was a 4 or 5 second championship record.
Championship best off Co's 3 from 84, right?
Yes, and it was done by the GOAT, still the GOAT. 26 years later, and still the world record holder. But at the Olympics last year, the quality and the world champs this year, but the quality of performance where there was overall from the top 5 or 6 was so high that the bar has shifted, or possibly has shifted. We've got a lot more people around that time, and then that's a better launch point for the sort of everything to to drop further when you have a bunch of guys consolidating around that time. It's just a theory. It's not something I've given a lot of thought, but it's like, man, he won that going away. And what Estevez was third in 330.5 in the Seville race, was you've got guys queuing up 328. What Jakob was fourth in 328.3. I don't know if it'll be this current crop, but in terms of setting a precedent and an expectation, you've talked about it a few times, Jace, about opening the floodgates and all of a sudden everyone's running quicker. It's an interesting point.
No, it definitely isn't. I agree with you. I just wonder. I still wonder if there's like a watermark for that. Like right now, we've seen this redefinition of kind of the, don't want to use this term, but it's a great one, journeyman, sort of level, right? So back in El Garouge's time, in that late 90s, early 2000s period, that journeyman level was the 330. 333 runner, and now all those guys are running under 330. So it's the question is has the whole thing shifted like this, or is it just like a compression towards like the front? Because actually a good counter to that would be that at the absolute pinnacle of the sport, which is El Garouge, which is these low 326 performances, we haven't seen any improvement, because we haven't seen anyone get within 5 seconds of that 2001 Brussels race. Not 5 seconds. Within half a second. We haven't seen anyone get within half a second of that Brussels race in 2001. The El Garouge Legat famous, probable world record. Could discuss that one on a.
I mean, the thing that the elephant in the room, and I don't mind saying it, is that the EPO test came in 2000, right, prior to the Sydney Olympics.
Yeah.
So. And the fact we haven't had a world record for 26 years, you can draw whatever inferences from that as viewers that you want. But that the EPO test came in 2000. The Sydney Olympics was a much lesser race than Seville, right? Yeah. So it's just a question of, if people were using EPO, how much of an effect did it have, and how long is it going to take the human race to catch up without it?
Well, yeah, I mean, the difference is, though, today we do have, we've got allegedly better spikes, super spikes, super foams. We've definitely got an improved in terms of, like, we've talked about this before, like the race execution is so much easier, especially at the top level with Wavelight. This ability to work on things in training specifically and translate them into the race environment has never been there before like it is now. It's think about El Garouge back in the era, right? Say even if you were like, hey, I'm going to focus on improving my anaerobic threshold for 1200 meters to run it in, 55 seconds or 55.5 per lap, right? And then all of a sudden you get into an actual race and the pacemakers are just charging out in like 26 point for the first 200 and 53 for the first lap. Like all of that training philosophy or what you've been working on in training kind of goes out the window. You've just got to hope that you can manage. Whereas today, with like this improved technology that we have with Wavelight, the paces are so much better because of that as well. You can just translate, and that's where I think you're seeing these massive jumps. But yeah, you might be right. I mean, we're definitely seeing the frequency of guys under 328 has, especially over 24, 25, has massively increased, because prior to 2024, how many guys did we have that had run under even 328, right? The only guy that had done it in the recent sort of era was Jakob. And then all of a sudden in 24, we had Josh Kerr join the club, Cole Hocker join the club, Jared Nagus, and then this year we've had Adazine Habs and Faniel Coach. So we could be trending that way.
Talking about race execution and how much better it is now, and you had said a few times, I will note this was prior to the World Championships, but I watched that Keely's race, the women's race in the Athlos meet, and I just can't help but thinking that both Keely and a little bit Hunter Bell. So Hunter Bell, you may recall, lost to Audrey Rado from being way too far back. So clearly then That's what we do as humans. We over adjust, and she was very close to the pace and didn't have her normal sap. I'm a bit filthy on it because I had a little bit of money on Hunter Bell, and yeah. And anyway, and I was going to put it on O'Dara, and I put O'Dara, and I thought she's too unknown. I watched the Diamond League race where she was sort of mid 156s when Kelly ran 154th. I said, no, Hunter Bell's better in a quicker race, more proven. Anyway, I digress. But both Hunter Bell to a lesser degree, and she got silver and run 154.9. You know, she wasn't, she's doing park runs 3 years ago. So, I mean, she's not going to be worried. But I can't help but thinking that Keely, and this isn't a dig at you at all, but it's good. Yeah. It's a good fertile ground for a back and forward. I can't help thinking that after watching Athlos, that Keely really cocked up that world champs, and that, you know, I think it's been, the way she was talking before, the best I can do if I can get a medal. Either something was wrong health-wise, because she just didn't look physically the same or in her body language as she did in the Diamond Leagues, or maybe it was what Co said about you come back after a break, you when you're cooking, and you're really cooking right away, but you don't have that residual strength there. And she didn't look great in the semi. But putting all that aside, just in terms of her tactics and how she ran at Athlos, I mean, Hunter Bell's a 154.9 woman now. She made her look ordinary in that last 100, and maybe Georgia Hunter Bell's tired, but it's like, man, she was light years better. And I just can't help but thinking that off a slightly more regulated Keely style pace, she could have acquitted herself a lot better against O'Dara.
Well, yeah, mate. I gave you dabs on the solo part of the podcast that I recorded when you were jet setting around the United States over exactly that point, because obviously the 800 was on the final day, and I did the review of the 5K final, the relays, and the women's 800. And I actually, after giving Kelly Hodgkinson the famous excellence of execution card, I did exactly this. I tossed it out. I said she blew it, and she did. No, you're 100% right. That race last night just kind of proved it again. And I'll tell you, the person that I attributed all to was Mary Mora, because Mora,
she's like the Joker, Mary Mora.
No, Mora completely fucked that race up for Hodgkinson, and Keely unfortunately took the bait, because if you remember that world final, I'm just rehashing what I said a couple of weeks ago. Okay. That first lap, it's good. We should talk about it. In that first lap, if you watch what happens, Mora gets out really, really quickly, and Keely obviously wants the front of the race, because like that's where she can really control the pace to her liking. She doesn't get caught up. Mora gets out really hard. Keely chases her for some reason. I don't quite know why. And then they spend the entire first 450, 500 meters of the race sort of uncomfortably fighting each other for the pole position in the race. And Mora's running on the outside of lane one, sort of like she wants to let Hodgkinson come through, but not really. And I thought to myself as that was happening, I'm like, oh my God, she is wasting so much energy playing this stupid game. And that's 100% like when, again, you're training in this particular fashion now to execute these even pace, strategies and race plans. And this is why like the World Championships are just still such a great event. Like when they don't have all this pacing help, it's like there's still this element of head-to-head combat. And like Mary Mora was like the ultimate spoiler for Hodgkinson in that race. And I was really interested that was an interesting race for me last night, women's 800. Not so because of, whatever. It was just another 800 race for me, but it was in October. But what I was interested to see is like how Hodgkinson would bounce back from that. Like if there was some, was she kind of trending down, or could she bounce back well? And she did, like with a vengeance. Like you're right. Like Georgia Hunter Bell's really good, and Keely just destroyed her. And honestly, to run 156 mid in the second week of October, when it was freezing cold on kind of this damp, dingy night in New York City, like pretty awesome. Like I was very, very impressed. For a little bit there, I was like, man, is Hunter Bell going to make this interesting, coming down with, I think, 250 to go, and then Keely just absolutely pulled away and destroyed her. So she did. She completely messed up that world final, just playing a stupid game with Mary Mora that she didn't need to play. Yeah. All right, slight little pause there while Shane got everything in order. Hey, so moving on, I guess we can touch on this one since we've already done the random meet special with Athlos. Grand Slam track, Rody, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this one. They get some emergency funding to pay half of their athletes. Just a quick question to you straight up. Does this mean that the league is going to be back in 2026? What was your take when you heard this?
I haven't really kept up with it. I did Google it after you said it yesterday. So can you just rehash for both myself and the viewership what's actually happened?
Well, it seemed like obviously there was this deadline of payments that was coming up around the World Championships. None of the athletes had been paid. Grant Fisher in particular was quite outspoken about it. If payment didn't come through, what would happen? Then all these stories came out about athletes that had put down payments on houses that were now having to sort of back out of these sales and everything. Just a total mess. And then almost out of the blue, Grand Slam track, Michael Johnson announced that they've secured 8 figures in emergency funding to pay half of the prize money, and agents confirmed that money had gone through. So as we're sitting here now recording this, it appears that Grand Slam track has paid at least half of their obligation or their commitment to these athletes. So the question is does that mean that the league is going to be back for 2026? What does it mean? I don't know. It's just such a weird situation.
It's bizarre because receivership or liquidation are not generally the things you're half pregnant on. So normally you're going under, in which no one gets paid, or you're actually sorry, 1 second. Or you're actually a viable entity that is going to continue. It's not what's this emergency funding, and what was the purpose of paying half? I would think you'd only ever be putting money back into the pool, so to speak, if you plan to continue. But the next question is, given how much of a flop it was, who's actually going to meaningfully invest back into it when you have Michael Johnson at the head of it, and his way was proven to be so wrong? So I would think that an alternative to the Diamond League, I think it could happen more alongside the Diamond League, as opposed, like you said initially, when the Diamond League will do it, with you. Yeah. But Michael Johnson's a problem in the sense that his ego and his desire to do it his way won't work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's an odd one. Like I don't have many clients, or I haven't dealt with many situations in practicing law where a little bit of money goes up to prop up something that, really speaking, in its current incarnation isn't viable. I don't really see that. You see all or nothing. Either it's done, or now let's keep this show on the road because we see some real potential here.
And just in mentioning that last option that you're talking about of keeping things going, that then becomes the question is like, if you do, how does it possibly move forward? How do any of the athletes or the agents have trust that they can do this again, right? Surely you can't have the same amount of prize money on the line, because if the format doesn't change, what makes you think that all of a sudden in year 2, after you've had let's be clear here, you had to cancel 1 meet of your 4 meet planned series. There were people, I'm sure, that were planning to go to this meet in LA that bought flights and had travel plans and all this kind of stuff. That happened in Philadelphia when they cancelled the first day there and turned it to a 2-day meet. People were like, shit, man, I got hotel rooms for Friday night to come and watch this. So the goodwill around that is just really bad. I just don't see a scenario where, even if it is there for next year, who on earth wants to do it? But I've got an alternative theory, Rody. Maybe you could shoot this down or give me your opinion on it. I just wonder if Johnson went back to some of those, his investment group and was like, hey, look, now, actually, you're the perfect person to ask about this too as a lawyer. Maybe he went back and was like, hey, listen, guys, there was $30 million in financial commitments, and there's obviously a big amount of ambiguity as to what constitutes a financial commitment, right? Like, it's never, it's clearly not like a fixed where, yes, you have to pay it, and it's all on a spectrum. Is there any possibility that he was like, hey, let's just call this quits. We won't take any kind of legal action against you over the amount of money that we thought we were going to get from you, but didn't. How about you just give us this? We'll pay off half of the athletes. You know, it was a lot of money anyway. So say if you were Grant Fisher expecting $100,000, if you get 50, that's still a lot more money than you make in a Diamond League race anyway. And we'll just call it split, call it quits. So ultimately what amounts to is just kind of like a settlement agreement and just like, is there any possibility that could happen?
That's what I think happened. Yeah. I think you should have been a lawyer, Jace. You got good intuitions. I think that then the podcast wouldn't have happened. I think that's probably what's. If I had to guess, and it's just a guess, I think that's what's happened. He goes to them and goes, we don't want to go after you. We don't want a big protracted legal battle, and without knowing the terms of what they agreed, or maybe it was just their goodwill. They said we don't want to burn you. We don't want to pay all of it. And then he goes back to the athletes and goes, you're not going to get 100, you'll get 50.
Yes, better than nothing.
And the messaging around that would be, sure, you could sue and, but that's going to take a long, long time. And there's some gray areas and yada, yada, yada. Just take your 50 and move on and sign a settlement agreement, as you said. So interesting to see what, if any, messaging comes from any athletes around it. If there's just tumbleweeds now and no one says anything, that's what's happened. If people are still chipping away, then maybe not.
And that's what leads me to believe there may be some credence to that.
That would be a sensible way out of all this mess if they've done that. That would be the most sensible way.
Because no athletes, you haven't heard anything at all about it, right? And 100% that then, as you just said, implies that there's some kind of NDA or non-solicitation clause there. It's the same when you get severed from a company or let go. It's like, this happens. You just got to keep your mouth shut. Don't talk about any terms or else we can come back on you quite easily. And that's it. Yep. Oh, well. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you too. I don't understand or see how there's any way it comes back. But
well, the people that have put money in, they would have felt burnt by Kingston. And the world is a ruthless place now. So if you invest in something and you can see that it just doesn't look and feel right from the get-go, people just cut you. They're not. That's the way the world is. The capital just moves on into something else, right? And they've gone, nah, this is a load of. I mean, it looked so terrible. I mean, how did they ever think that was going to be? Didn't even have the sort of green shoots of something that could succeed. Anyway, what I was thinking, what the point I was actually going to make was, it's like the hubris of, and I've done this in something in my life. I'm sure you have. It's a lesson for, you would think, a younger person a mistake for a younger person to make. Look at the history of failed attempts to try and upset the apple cart to reorganize the power structure of how sports run. Even like Live Golf, I don't really follow golf, even though I enjoy playing myself. It bores me a little bit, the politics around it, because it's so in your face if you're on like social media. But apparently that's lost a shit ton of money. Other sports, when they've tried, like the old rugby league in Australia, when they tried to have the Super League, and in the UK, and there must be other instances in, say, US sport or global sport. But like Michael Johnson, greatest or one of the greatest long sprinters ever, if not the greatest, and like the talent it takes and the years of experience to actually be a successful entrepreneur and put things together in a way that succeeds, like these Zuckerberg type guys. It's like, it's a talent in and of itself. And it's very unlikely that someone who's been a great sprinter is going to go and turn their hand to something. It'll be like saying to Michael Johnson, well, old Zucks over here is going to train for the 400 next year and he's going to have a rival league and he's going to become the rival league, the Facebook world champion or something. It takes a lot of years of hard work and skill. And it's like watching it all sort of crumble makes you realize, like, it reinforces just how difficult something like that is to do, even for someone with the skills and the network. And it's, like, for example, if say it was Serena's partner, who I understand, I don't follow Serena Williams at all, but hearing about him yesterday with Reddit and all the success he's had, say Johnson was in that world, straight away he would have had so much more opportunity, because if he had either money himself or he was very connected with people that trusted him as an entrepreneur, it wouldn't have tanked straight away, because he would have been in the pocket with people with a lot of money behind him. And he could have played with the formula to have actually kept it. It's just like when you're on the pokies. It's why the people will wet themselves, because they won't leave their pokie machine, because they're not going to get off until the bell rings. It's no different to that. Often the amount of cash you need to keep a startup going is astronomical. If you don't have sole control over that venture while it's in that nascent stage, then you can have the rug pulled out for him at any moment. So that's what's happened here. And if he'd been in that world or successful himself in that world, it may well have continued to be morphed and changed until it succeeded. But if you've got outside control over your capital and you've got something that difficult and you've got no experience on how to put it together, your chances are basically zero.
Well, you know, that's an interesting topic. So right now in the US, right, we've had this explosion of former pro athletes on podcasts.
I know,
right? Yeah,
and us.
That sounds a little bit hypocritical, us sitting here, but I will say this, but the narrative that is created by them is basically, you can't talk about the sport like we can because you didn't play it, right? And there was actually a very famous incident on a network recently, an NFL show, where a former player, a guy called Ryan Clark, and what was the guy's name? It was always on Bill Simmons' podcast. Anyway, a non-football guy, they actually kind of they got into it where the guy was like, the football guy was like, well, you can't say that because you didn't play the game and you don't know. And this guy was like, it's basically like, shut up, let me finish. You cannot just default to this. Like, there are people that know about the sport, right? And you don't just have to have played in a sports league or been a professional to have watched and to love and to understand and to know things that you don't. But there is this kind of narrative going on that if you once played in the sport or were an athlete in the sport, your knowledge over everything to do with that sport trumps everybody else. And you can see this with all these failed ventures, and especially like the situation with Michael Johnson, where he's like, nobody knows the sport like me. So therefore, he was so convinced that his proposition of Grand Slam track with this format, and we don't need field events, and we're going to do this double format. I truly believe he was completely 100% convinced and could not be told otherwise that this wasn't the best idea. In his mind, he's like, but I'm the Olympic hero. I'm the Olympic champion. I ran professionally for all these years. And I think it's this weird kind of level of entitlement that is happening with former athletes these days, thinking that everything they will touch with respect to a sport or any venture around it will immediately turn to gold. And you just gave a good example with Zuckerberg as to why that wasn't the case. And I think we have another example with Michael Johnson as to why it's not the case. But that's why a lot of these sports leagues and these ideas just fail, because people are way over their skis on just how difficult it is. And they think that a little bit of competence in a certain area of the sport automatically translates to it in every area of the sport, which is just not.
I saw a podcast with Lance Armstrong, and he was asked whether he would ever coach or manage teams, and he just gave like one of your style reactions of as if it was as if it was a crazy idea. The guy said, "Why do you react like that?" And he just said, "I don't know anything about those things."
Smart guy.
He goes, I was always Michele Ferrari for my training, and it was always Johan Brunel for managing the team. And I just trusted them, and I identified them as the best in the business on both those vectors, both those activities. And I wouldn't profess to understand that stuff. Yeah.
Well, I didn't think we were going to talk that long on Grand Slam track, but I'm glad we did, because I feel like we didn't talk that much about it early in the season. Shano, as a lawyer, I've got a fun new game for you. It is called Make the Case. All right. I think we can turn this into a regular on the podcast. It's called Make the Case. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is just throw out a scenario or something to do with something that's just happened, and you need to make the case one way or the other. And by default, I'll have to counter it, or vice versa. So you get the first pick. I think we've probably only got time to do one of these, but it is a really good one.
Yeah,
we'll
okay.
We'll
do one and do it well.
We'll gauge the viewer feedback. We get out of all these tens of thousands of viewers that we get, like we'll do a survey and see if they like it or not. But this is actually a really good time to do it because there was some really interesting news come out of the sport in the last couple of days surrounding, of course, everyone's favorite Dutch 400-meter hurdler, Femke Bols, who has now, as of today, given up running the 400-meter hurdles and has moved up to the 800 meters moving forwards. Okay. So here is the case, right? Femke Bols is going to be a legit global contender in the 800 meters. Make the case, Shane, you can go either way. She will or she won't. What do you reckon?
I think if I had to lean, say my life was on the line right now, while I have a lot of skepticism around this type of thing, I have to think that her and her camp know enough about how she trains to think that it's viable, and they've seen enough in training to think she can do it. She may even have done time trials in training where she's been able to run 2 minutes or 1:59,
or even a 600 and like
600, 124 or 125.
Yeah.
Like I just think, and 400 hurdles, a lot of strength. My big proviso though is I think she has to stick at it, and it may be 2 or 3 years away before she's truly world class. I don't think she's going to run 155 next year. I don't think. It was amazing on Let's Run. There's options to click on the time that she think they're going to run, and 33% of people thought she's going to run between 155 and 156 like next year.
Yeah.
And I was in the minority when I said over 157. I just don't think she's going to jump into an event. Look at SML. She took 2 years really to get, and she was still often like tapping out in the 49 mids and looking pretty disgusted with herself afterwards. And then she ran 47.7. It's not going to be overnight.
Yeah. So what basically do you think she could, well, let's use 2028 because I think that was all part of her little press release and Olympic goal and stuff. Do you think by 2028 she will be there in that Olympic final in LA and a legitimate contender?
No. I just think it's could she be world class? Yes, but there's a great Renato Canova post many moons ago, and he said that if all the distances that we raced over were like 150, 300, 700, 1100 meters, 1700 meters, he said it wouldn't be overnight, but over time you'd have a totally different composition of champions because the people that are perfect, there's a huge global population, and the things that go into making you the best in a particular activity are very specific. And I just think it's not an emotional point, but it's just, it's not an emotional thing for me, but it's like, I think it is slightly derogatory towards the likes of Kelly Hodgkinson
George
and
Hunter
Hunter Bell and Athing Mu and Vero, that someone from a different event, a 400 hurdler. I mean, there's not that many examples in history. Wasn't there a guy in the 80s who was good at both?
Yes, there was. So there was a German guy called Harold
Schmidt.
Harold Schmidt, who was he was at one point in time second fastest man ever over the 400 hurdles behind Edwin Moses. And he was also like a mid to low 144 runner. And Harold Schmidt, like awesome runner, like just a beast. So he ran like 47.2 or something like that. And he was third in the Olympic Games in either 84 or 88 over the hurdles, right? So he was Olympic medalist that level. And he also ran under 145 back in that era. But here is one caveat to that. He had always been a dual 400 meter hurdle, 800 runner his entire career, because I had a quick look at his profile.
I remember.
Exactly. So it's not like he'd just been only a 400 meter hurdler and then all of a sudden was like, oh, now I've got to do a little bit more mileage and maybe I can run a good 8. He was like, that was just his jam for his entire career. Now we know that's not the case with Femke, because otherwise she would have been, at least a handful of times on the circuit over the last, 4 to 5 years where she's been prominent, she would have been in a few 800-meter races, and that would be really the equivalent of her already running like 157, 156, right? So
you know this better than anyone. You're a sort of 4.8. You're got over 400, and you probably didn't develop it as much as you could have. But the rhythm to run the 200 and the 400 are similar, but the rhythm to run the 400 and 800 are completely different.
yeah,
And she does come on strong at the end of her races, and she does have, I think, a better gait or rhythm for it than, say, Sydney, who's definitely punchier and quicker.
And body type too.
And body type.
Lighter,
So she's
lighter, more
lighter,
whippy.
yeah,
sort
more
of
whippy,
action.
and runs those superb last hundreds of the four and the four flat. But it's just such an unknown, and it's like a high performance car. Like it looks great and everything, but what's under the bonnet in a very specific physiological way that's going to lend her to the event, and it's just a total unknown. So the easy option is, when you ask me that very pointed question about LA 28, no.
Yeah.
But is it conceivable she could be the best or at the top? Sure, why not?
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, it's also an issue of baseline talent, and obviously she's incredibly talented. I will tell you this: I heard a little rumor through the grapevine that a very prominent 800-meter coach globally had witnessed some of her workouts over in Europe, and he believes that she can run in the low 156 range this upcoming indoor season. That's what he believes.
There you go.
Now, again, nothing in life is ever quite that simple. Whenever I hear these 400 to 800 things, obviously the first thing that jumps into my mind is the classic Jeremy Warner conundrum. Like, it's the most fabled sort of scenario of all time, where it was like, wow, Jeremy Warner, he's a lightweight, thin guy, he's not overly muscled. If he can run 43 seconds for a 400, he should be able to jog through in 50, and he's so far away, and then all he's got to do is run another 53 and he's already world class. And it obviously that wasn't the case. The 400 hurdles a little bit different, but that's always kind of, I guess, that sort of doorstopper moment for me, where I'm like, sometimes in life, things that seem so intuitively simple never actually are in reality, right?
Yeah. Okay. Just thinking. Sorry, the feed broke up a little bit there.
I'll do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, not everything that looks on the face of it really like straightforward and obvious often isn't the case. And I think for her, it's always a shame when people, she sort of looked a little bit off this year. She wasn't like in the 4 hurdles. She won and everything, but you know what I mean? She just didn't look like she wasn't, what she run, 50.95 at her.
That was a PR, yeah.
So it seems like these athletes, when they go off into another event, which is, when they weren't at their absolute peak in their main event, it's like if whatever range of talents you are using, was it speed, strength, physical strength, aerobic ability as well, because there's definitely that at play in the 400 hurdles. Yeah. If you've come down, say 10%, and how it's translating in the event you've run your whole life, I don't know why you think it's like when the athletes back in the day used to go to the marathon.
Yeah.
After they were, when they dropped off in the event that was the best expression or forum for their talents. And then they go, okay, I've come down from where I'll go to something which is outside my comfort zone I've never done, and then expect it to be better.
Yeah, I mean, another guy that I would think about there is Kinesisi Bekele. And obviously it took him a while. I mean, he ended up running extremely well in the marathon, but it did take him a while and a number of races to kind of get into that groove, even though clearly he was doing more than enough mileage and had enough aerobic development and flaws developed, as a 6-time world cross country champion, did the double 5 times in a row, world record holder in the 5 and the 10. I think the thing will be also for Femke as well is there is going to be a slight shift in training. And the other thing too is, like, she is 26. She's going to be 26, I believe, in February. So that sounds crazy to say that's old, because it's not. But she has also had she's had a really good sort of career so far at a very high level, right? And the question is always like, how much longer can you go on at that level? And I agree with you. I just wonder if there's a little bit of SML effect here too, where
Of course there
Sydney's
is. Like
moved on from the
yeah.
400, and Femke wins that world title this year, and probably in the back of her mind too, she's like, yes, I'm the world champion, but only because the actual best 400-meter hurdler didn't.
And
unless
Sydney had injury problems or like did
no
a nothing moo, there's 0% chance she's ever going to beat her. So I get why that's no longer a challenge,
Yeah, but it's definitely an interesting one. I mean, it's certainly unprecedented in this sense. I don't think we've ever seen an athlete, and this isn't like a 200 athlete going to the 400 or something like that. I think this is kind of unprecedented in such a decorated athlete in their event who has no history of competitively running the distance before saying, hey, I'm basically stopping this event where I know that I can turn up to a Worlds or a Diamond League meet and get paid a lot of money to either win the race or as an appearance fee. I'm going to do that and transition to an event which ultimately is twice the distance. So fair play to her, man. This is definitely going to be a very interesting thing.
Yep. I think it's a good move. It's good for us as fans. It's interesting. And I have actually thought when I've watched her run, particularly some of those relays, which more resemble the 800, how they all run in lane one.
Right.
And her running form in those relays, when she's sitting in, I've actually thought quite a few times it would be super interesting. I've never thought, oh man, she'd win the 800, be head and shoulders above, because I don't think that. But I've often thought it would be super interesting to watch her run over 800 because she runs with a nice rhythm when she's running in those relays. Yeah. When she comes off the bend.
No, I agree. Well, there we go.
Right. You better wrap it up. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Meaty. All right. Well, mate, anything planned for your Sunday there?
Golf yesterday and took the dog for a walk, mate. Go down to the French bakery and get a beautiful, like one of those little baguettes. It's fabulous. Queue out the door. Don't go to the Chinese restaurant next door, though. We saw it there and we went the other night and I bit into the shumai and it was, I kid you not, stone cold. Yeah.
Oh, dear. Where's
$42. It's next to this French bakery I'll take you to up in Dominion on Dom Road.
Okay.
It's like crack. These baguettes.
To the dumpling spot.
Further down, more into the sort of Shafraz Khan area of town.
Oh, back where the crowded houseboys used to live.
No, much further towards Hillsborough, towards the bastion of Stephen Scopes and
right. Yeah,
D. Griffiths. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I might go for a run. I might dodge the tanks and troops on the streets of Portland and see if I can get up to Forest Park and
Ice baby
8 miles in. So yeah, we'll see. And of course, we've got the NFL tomorrow. Greatest, most interesting sport, right? Yeah, not really. I did have a rant planned for that one, but maybe we'll do that another time.
Next week.
Yeah, we can do that next week. All right, mate.
Very good.
Hey, that was good. Where these ad lib chats are working out well, just showing our expertise and our pedigree.
Well, we enjoy them anyway.
Knowledge. Yeah,
all about the pedigree.
It's all about the pedigree,
as
a great man once said. All right, mate. Have a good one. We'll catch you next week.
Take it easy.
See you, mate.